Hello brothers, my name is Lion Carew. Some of you may know me as Brian. I've been in chats with Keegan about this subject for quite some time, and I'm creating this video as an offering, an intro into integral sexuality for men, and this is specifically for the UNCOM community. As an uncommon man, I believe one of the qualities of being uncommon is this aspect of integral sexuality, and what I mean by that is being integral with your sexual energy and understanding that relationship. So in this video, this is an intro into the definition, an understanding of what I'm really explaining here and why it's super important and how it creates more brotherhood and more potentiation and a higher degree and quality of man in the world. So I have some of my notes here. You see my laptop. It's because this is a pretty deep subject and I want to speak to these things correctly. So again, integral sexuality for men. The definition here, my definition, is cultivating a relationship with your sexual life force energy and how to direct it and how to use it consciously. When I'm talking about sexual energy, I'm not talking about just the energy that's transferred during a sexual interaction. I'm talking about the energy that's required to create anything. I'm talking about life energy. Whether that's your thoughts or something that you're actually manifesting in real life, it's creative energy. We all have it, and as men, we are very action orientated, and it's very important that we are aware and we are consciously using that energy, especially in a context of sexuality, which I will get to. And my definition here, or something that I want to encompass this conversation with, is the importance of a relationship with this energy. So when I'm talking about sexuality, I'm not just talking about touching yourself per se. I'm not just talking about sex. I'm talking about the relationship you have with this ability to create, which of course is in relation to your ability to feel pleasure and your ability to have intercourse, but it's much broader than just sex. It's your relationship to your energy that can create things. And in that way, it's very similar to physical training. If you don't have a relationship with physical training, if you're not putting in the time, then you're not going to cultivate an understanding of your body, you're not going to cultivate musculature, you're not going to cultivate skills. It's the same thing with sexual energy. If you don't practice, if you don't harbor a relationship with it, you're not going to understand how to consciously use it, and it will use you. So this brings me now into the why. Now that we have an understanding of what I'm really talking about, it's much broader than sex. It's about the energy required to create something. And of course it applies to sex and to pleasure, but it's also broader. Now that we have that definition, I want to invite you into why this is so important and why I believe it requires more attention from men, and why I believe it should be seen as a pillar just as important as physical training, just as important as business, just as important as masterminding. The Mars, I believe this is like a very important pillar in any man's journey in life. Why? One of the main reasons, if you don't use this energy, if you don't cultivate it, if you don't have a relationship with it, you will eventually act out of integrity with it, because it will use you. There's no pushing away or repressing sexual energy. It is a part of our life. It is a part of what we are and who we are as human beings. So the options that I see are either develop a relationship with it, master it, just like your ego, master it, or it is going to influence you. And when it influences you and it is not understood, it's not cultivated, you're usually going to act in ways that hurt yourself or other people, or act in ways that are out of alignment for you, causing dysfunction in your physical body, in your emotional body, in your mental body, causing all sorts of issues that you don't want in your life. And there are millions of men who are facing that. I know this because of the work that I do. Another reason why I believe this topic is so important is because I believe the world becomes a much better place when more men are aware of this energy, when they're cultivating it, when they have a relationship with it, because they're in relationship with their sexual urges and they have mastered that aspect of themselves. They're not a byproduct and a slave to their sexual urges. It's like a man who is addicted to bad food or anything else in life. He's become a slave to that. And therefore he will always, answer to the demand of the urge. And when it comes to sex, that can become very, very dangerous, of course. When it comes to creative energy, that can be very, very dangerous. Also, I believe this is very important because the world becomes a safer place for women and children when men are embodied in their sexual energy. Lastly, I think this is really, really important because a world where men don't live in such shame around their sexuality and desires creates more bonding between men, more positive competition, and a world where men are helping each other to lift each other up in one of the most sensitive topics, which is sex. And it really just allows men to work more together on a common mission. There's less separation, there's more connection, because of course sex in and of itself, not just sexual energy with the broad topic, but sex in and of itself and pleasure, touching yourself, these things are very sensitive topics and most men are ashamed to talk about it. So one of the deepest whys is so that men don't live in such shame. When men are in shame, they're not at their highest. It affects their mind, it affects their bodies. We want men to be at their highest. So again, the world is a safer place for children and for women, and it's just a better place for all humans. The last thing I want to go over in this intro is how. The broad concepts of how this can actually be done. How do we actually bring this topic forward and how do we integrate it into our lives as men? I have 3 strategies in my experience, in my opinion. These 3 strategies are awareness, practice, and sharing. The first is awareness. It's very, very important to have the knowledge, the deep understanding of sexual life force energy and what it's all about, because if you don't have that knowledge, you'll probably repress this thinking this is stupid or it's woo-woo or what's the point, or it's just such a sensitive and vulnerable topic that if you don't understand the deep knowledge of this subject, most people will push it away, and that's often what we see in society. It's a very sensitive topic, so more awareness, more knowledge on the topic is better because then you get to understand what it's really about. It's similar to like anyone who doesn't understand any sort of topic. Like if you don't understand physical training and its benefits and why it's good for us, you wouldn't do it because it's difficult. Same thing with sexual energy, sex, self-pleasuring. These things can be very touchy and sensitive to talk about, and if you don't have the awareness of it, the knowledge, you just won't go there. So awareness is key so that we can talk about these things, so we can learn about these things with knowledge and with an openness and with a depth. Next is practice. Like anything in life, if you don't practice, you don't have a relationship with it. If you don't have a relationship with your sexual life force energy, then like I mentioned time and time again in this video, that energy is going to use you. I like to make a comparison to anger. If you repress anger, eventually that anger is going to build up to the point where it lets itself out in an unintegrated way. And when that happens, usually we hurt people. It's similar to sexual energy. It will find its way out. It will find its way out in you watching pornography, or in the worst case where men are aggressive to their sexual partners. And we often see this in like a nightclub or bars, men being very aggressive and their sexual energy is being squirted out in unintegrated ways. So practice allows men to cultivate a relationship with their sexual energy and understand how to be in control and in a state of mastery with it, so that they can work with it and they understand how it flows through their body and they know what to do when they have urges. So important. It's similar to training. You have to practice certain movements and certain skills to acquire mastery within them, and then you can step into those arenas of physical movement and training with mastery. It's the same thing here. Of course, the importance of practice is that so we don't hurt ourselves and others, and so that men don't become in these deeply ashamed states. And then again, the worst thing is when men are repressed so much that they end up hurting others or doing something like sexual assault or rape. These scenarios, I believe, are a result of the inability to practice, the inability to have a relationship with that energy, and an inability to know what to do with the intensity of that energy. Lastly, sharing. This is also incredibly important. Every man that I've worked with is suffering from isolation and shame with regards to his sexuality. And the antidote to that is sharing with other men. Sharing with other men allows you to normalize your experience, and it allows us men to demystify the false cultural programming that we have received about sex. Pornography is not real sex. It is not real sex. There are forms of erotic content out there that show more of what's happening and the totality of a holistic sexual experience, but standard industry porn that is out there is a huge cost to any man's health because it's teaching them things that are not real, and it's creating a scenario in their mind that basically fills them with shame. Almost every man I've worked with fears not being big enough. They have issues around their stamina, and they've created this whole narration in their mind that they're just simply not enough because they're comparing themselves to a false sense of sexuality created by pornography. So what sharing does is it eliminates shame, and it creates stronger bonds between men. It creates a real sense of what's happening for other men in their sexuality. And thus it gives men the ability to feel confident in themselves, to feel connected to themselves, and to gain the benefit of sharing openly with their brothers. Brotherhood can't occur without open, vulnerable, and honest communication. And since sexual energy, and particularly sex, intercourse itself, is such an intimate part, such an integral part of any man's life, being able to talk to other men about that subject is incredibly important. Men need to learn from other men. Men need to share with other men to learn how to be better men. And we can't learn as men how to be integral and conscious with our sexual energy, with our pleasure, and with our sexual relationships unless we're talking about that with other men. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your attention and presence. This is a subject that is obviously very near and dear to my heart, and I feel like it's part of my mission, my purpose in the world, to help men be more integral, more conscious with their sexual life force energy, with what they create in the world, and particularly with their pleasure and the sexual relationships they're having. The reason why is I believe this will make the world a better place, a safer place for women and children, and it will help men to step into their highest potential. I want to see a world where men are more connected, where we're helping each other solve problems, and where we are doing our best to resist against a system that is inundating us with things that aren't helping us with regards to our health, our mentality, and our family relationships. We need strong men who are connected to their sexual essence to stand up against systems that are trying to destroy our connections in our body and our holistic living. And holistic living means that we look at every aspect of our life. Our physical body, our thoughts and our mental body, our emotions, the way we feel, and of course our sexual essence, our energy, and the way that we bring forward our essence into life. So thank you so much, brothers. Wishing you the best on your journey, trusting that you are doing amazing in whatever you're doing, and hope that you're finding joy within your lessons and your learnings. And I look forward to possibly connecting with you more in the future. Much love. Peace.